Before you can ever really talk in depth about linguistics, you have to be able to understand two simple concepts that are central to the field: descriptivism and prescriptivism. Prescriptivism is the practice of assigning grammatical rules or usage rules to a language. In English, we hear a lot of never end a sentence with a preposition or never split infinitives. Prescriptivists create rules based on how they think a language should sound and how it should be used, rather than how it is actually used by the people speaking it. There's this idea that there's a right form of the language, and all utterances should conform to this standard. Prescriptivism is not a matter of grammaticality or whether or not the form follows the grammatical rules of the language, but rather it's a matter of preferring one form over the other. Descriptivism, on the other hand, is the practice of observing language use and then forming rules based on the data found. Descriptivists will collect large samples of language from speakers and then try to form any conclusion about how the language works and how speakers use it after the fact. There's no incorrect language use within this model as long as the language form is accepted and used by a large enough group of speakers. Descriptivism sometimes gets flack from people who think that their language is being threatened. They say things like, if nothing is correct, then we can say anything. Why bother even having a grammatical structure? Language can just be a free-for-all. Well, I hate to disappoint the dramatists in the audience, but that's not exactly how language works. Language naturally is bound by rules, but it's through descriptivism that we try to understand the rules that are already in place, already in the system governing our language, rather than trying to impose new rules or bizarre rules from the outside in. There's nothing inherently wrong with preferring one form over the other or having a personal preference in language. The problem arises when you try to impose your preference of language on other people and try to institutionalize it as a rule within the system. It's really important to ask yourself why you have a prejudice against a certain form of language, why you think that it's wrong. Maybe you've been told your whole life that a certain way of speaking is wrong. Maybe your parents told you that. Maybe your teachers did. Maybe your peers have reinforced this. Or maybe it has to do with race or class or gender or any one of the multitudes that might influence you in being prejudiced against different variations in language. It's a complex question and it's not easy to answer, and I certainly can't answer it here. But the important thing is to be understanding of language use from an objective standpoint and to recognize the validity of language use that is different from your own.